Hi, welcome to our next part of Stadium Sounds with me, Shone. Now in the first two videos we looked at program mode and combination mode, and now we're going to spend some time looking at how you add your internal effects to your Stadium Sounds. Let's go back to one of our original sounds. Here we have the grand piano that I took. Here we have the grand piano that I made after tweaking it. And now we're going to add a couple of effects on that just to kind of make it a little bit thicker. So click on your program that you've saved and come down here to your effects menu. Here on your insert effects. So I've loaded up the page here, and as you can see, maybe it looks like a maze if you haven't seen something like this before, but it's just a basic single path. The sends are coming in here from your sound, and they go into your effects, into your total effects, and then out to your master volume, which you can control up and down. Now, the pianos that we've created are already big and full, and they really don't need that much doing to them. But let's just add a little bit of dynamics just to kind of give it that extra stadium sound. So here I've got a few effects that I lined up earlier on. A stereo dynamic compressor, a small reverb, a harmonic chorus, and a dynamic delay. Now we don't need all these things, but what I tend to do is just add little bits and pieces until I found it sounds good. Now I'm just going to touch a tiny little verb on there because the piano obviously, as it stands, is completely dry. Now in a big room, if you're playing an arena, a stadium, a church, you don't need a huge amount of verb. Actually, very, very little. You may want just a tiny bit for your ears, or none at all. So I just tend to produce a really small amount of reverb, just so I can hear it coming out the piano. So overb is one of my favourites because it's really controllable. And I click into Master Effects there, down to the overb, and I tend to look at what I'm doing here. I've got the no pre-delay because we don't want it to kick in later on. You've got your size of your reverb and your reverb time. Okay. Now, just put the wet. Or the best thing to do with experimenting with multi-effects is to really just place your signal mix all the way up to wet, so you can hear what it would sound completely. That's a big sound. And also, I tend to just keep size is 100. That's the max you can go, and you can take your reverb time to 100 and just see what it sounds like. It's got a long decay on it. So maybe we'll just shorten these all down a bit. So let's bring our reverb time down quite a lot. And let's bring our wet dry mix right down until we feel like it's suitable. And just experiment until you find the right mix for you. I bring the size down so it feels like a smaller room. And I just mess about until I feel like it's right. Brilliant. Now let's move on. Small bit of chorus maybe. Chorus is really good for fattening up sounds. It's one sound I use for Steal My Girl when I put the chorus all the way up. So again, I load my chorus and I go down to my total effects here, tab, open it up. And let's just hear again. Best way to experiment by turning the wet dry mix all the way up to wet. Sounds a bit honky tonk, but in the song Steal My Girl, the chorus sound of the piano was really high up, probably 100% wet. So here's what it sounded like then. This sound, we don't want to really ruin the piano sound that we made because it was so brilliant before. So, I'll blow my own trumpet there, but it was a fantastic sound. So, let's bring the wet dry bands right down again. I can just hear it broken through, maybe too much for my liking. just enough for me there. Let's go back to our total effects page again, and the last thing I'm going to add to this piano is a tiny bit of delay. Again, these are all kind of thickening components that you can use to thicken your sound up. Again, click the tab, total effects, 2. Here's our dynamic delay, and at the moment it's set to a 50-50 balance. Now because it's dynamic delay, the harder I press, the more it pulls in. But we don't really want a huge amount of delay. So again, I'm just going to bring the wet-dry balance right down. Now it might be that the feedback and the tails are too long. So here, on your feedback and the amount of time that it's delayed, I'm just going to bring that down. That's in milliseconds, so it's 45. So I'm going to half that. 225, no, 220. Oops. 220. Yeah, let's just try 220 for the moment. And let's bring the feedback down a touch. That's the amount of times the reverb repeats. Can't really hear that at all, which is great. So just notch the wet dry balance up again. Now I like a really short feedback because it just makes it thicker. Fantastic. So those are a few effects you can use on the piano and just play around, have fun. That's how you get to experiment what it's like building sounds. But those are a few things. Small amount of reverb, small amount of delay with a low feedback, a bit of chorus, and you'll create a big, huge piano sound. Now, on top of that, there's also, as we discussed occasionally in the last couple of videos, the 3-band EQ. Now, amazing. Without having to use any of my extra effects slots, we can use a 3-band EQ here. And again, I've just added a touch of low and a touch of high. And the brighter you want to make it, the more high gain you can put in. Which is great for cutting through on those really kind of poppy numbers. So that's the piano. And we're going to look at how we add some internal effects to our combination modes next. So now we're going to look at adding effects in our combination mode. Now, if we go back to that one thing sound I had, that atmospheric breakdown, we took this sound, again, just a normal piano, and we turned it into this sound, didn't we? And let's see some of the effects processing that we used to create that warmth and sound. So here we go, we'll click on our combi again, and here we have one thing breakdown. Now, we've already been through the amount of sounds that we have, and what we could do is we can now add some effects to that. So we've got a couple of options here. Our insert effects, which we can add to our individual sounds that make up the huge timbre, and again, our master effects and total effects. So let's go into our internal effects and see what we can add. So here you see here a list of 12 insert effects that you can add onto any channel. So here, I'm just running a stereo expander. I'm not putting a huge amount of effects on because already there's a lot going on there. We don't need a huge amount. You'll be careful of adding too many effects, too many things, because obviously you're going to create a lot of different kind of noise and stuff that we may not necessarily need. So here, I've routed, if I press the routing button 1, you see that here, I've got each individual sound laid out here, 16, as in combi, like in the combi mode main page. And here I'm going to route my piano to my first effects. Now all I have to do is click the jog wheel around, and you'll see it'll pull up my sound 1, and it will take it to my stereo expander, which I've put in to give it a bit of expansion, and then it's routed at the moment down to 12. There's nothing happening to 12, and then out of 12 it's in. So let's go to our insert effects. There we go, and we can see the chain here coming in from number 1 and going all the way down to number 12 and out. Now we can change that chain to wherever we want. We can take this stereo effects here, a stereo expander here, and put it into 8, 7, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we can just keep going down the chain. Now I've just bypassed it all the way to 12, and so it goes out. And there is our stereo expander. So if I look at my insert effects by clicking IFX 1 to 12, I can see that number 1 in the setup that I've got my stereo expander. Now you can use any of these effects from the KRONOS library. We can add dynamics, delays, compressors. Let's just change it to another option. Let's try wah. Not quite the sound we're looking for, but there you go, experimentation. We can just try and test different ones. If you want some crunch, that could be useful. So anyway, so those are our internal effects, insert effects. And we can go through as many as we like, adding to as many different channels as we have on our combi mode. Now, let's take that off again because we don't want that. And now let's go to our multi effects. Now you can hear the sound that I made here again. Has this lovely sweeping reverse delay on it. So in the MFX TFX page, we'll see again the kind of routing that I applied. Again, chorus, a small amount of reverb. This time I put some graphic EQ in there because there's a lot of sounds going on. I just want to tailor my EQ and notch out what I do and do not need. So let's take a look. MFX1, again, a really low wet and dry mix, a touch of chorus. Our reverb, again, as I said before, a really low wet and dry mix, just to create a bit of swirl there. And here is our graphic EQ. Now I've not touched the bottom, I've not touched the middle, but I have knocked out some of the high end stuff because, as I said before, it can get really bright up there if you've got really sounds that are coming out. Now I want to show you the difference by taking up the highs right to the very top. Again, this is how I feel like you learn really well, is by putting everything to the extreme one way or the other and seeing how things sit. See how harsh and bright that is. Probably too much. Too much, it might blow the audio recorder. So let's bring it back down. A lot with these larger combis, a bit like a great production technique that they use on records these days, is to scoop out pretty much anything from 6K on and drop it down. Now we don't have a high pass on this, but what we do is we can just reduce down some of the higher end stuff until we feel that it's right. Here we go. That feels about right to me. Now if the lows are too much, we can do the same again. We can just bring some of the lows of the piano down between the 500 and the 1K. And there you go. So now let's just have a look at our final total effects, which is our reverse delay, and that's really kind of the icing on the cake. The really kind of sound that makes everything flow. I discovered this a while back. I was like, I really fell in love with the reverse delay. So a bit more of a wet dry balance, and this is on our total effects here in the routing at the very end of the chain. And the reason it's at the very end of the chain because we want the whole thing to wash with this reverse delay. We don't want one instrument to have the reverse delay and not the other. So we're going to put it on our total effects at the very end of the chain. It's the last thing that is in the signal path. So let's have a look. Here I've added a lot more wet dry balance. I've gone for a 73-27 split here. Again, it's not because I was being technical, I was just literally kind of working out what sounded right and what was right for this sound. Again, if I take it all the way up to the top and experiment, you'll see that it's just really, really not working for me there. So let's bring it right down so more of the dry sound comes in. Back up a bit more. And again, you can mess with the levels here, how long you want it, what time you want it to start in. and your feedback level. So you can see that the more feedback we add, the more times around the loop will go. Which could be a cool effect when making records. Let's bring it right down. So it is really a case of just experimenting in the way that you want to make that sound, and also just being subtle with it and creating, because there's so much going on with the band and programming and tracking when we were doing stadiums, that we don't want to overload these mixes with a lot of stuff. Create subtlety, create small dynamic changes, and you'll see an absolute change in your sound. Fantastic.